Welcome, everybody. College football week 8 is in the books and college football week 9 is here. I'm Joe at the Game House, and today we'll be going over college football week 9 picks. Okay, as mentioned, we're going to go over college football week 9 picks. As a reminder, we're not going to do picks against the spread here. We'll talk about it a little bit here and there with some of the games I find more interesting, but mostly just going to do some of the college football picks straight up. There's not as many good games this weekend, but it's still worth picking every week. Let's see what we can do. We've had a pretty good year with our picks. We're going to start it off with, let's do Syracuse over Virginia Tech. We're going to talk about this one because Virginia Tech's actually kind of made their way kind of into bowl contention. I still think they're a little bit farther away from getting there than most people would think, I guess. Syracuse has had a pretty good season. They've only lost to pretty good teams in the ACC. I think they can go on the road and get the win. Next one up, we have Oklahoma at Kansas. This one is on Saturday at noon. Kansas has had a good season last year. They look like they're having a solid season this year. Maybe the preseason expectations were a little bit too high, but they've also had injuries to quarterback Jalen Daniels, who was the preseason Big 12 Player of the Year. Backup quarterback Jason Bean, I think, would start for a lot of Power 5 teams if he were somewhere else. So it's not like they're losing a ton, but it is still the preseason Player of the Year. Oklahoma had a little bit of a scare last week with UCF. I think they get back on track, be refocused for this game, and are able to beat Kansas on the road. We have Florida State over Wake. Wake, I believe, has 4 wins on the season. Shouldn't take them lightly. Florida State's had some injuries too, so just make sure they stay focused. They should be able to get the win. We have Kansas State over Houston. Kansas State has started to find a little bit more of a rushing attack, and hopefully if they keep this up with quarterback Avery Johnson, they could end up making the Big 12 championship game like was predicted in the preseason, but then kind of hit a bump in the road in the middle of the year. We're going to go Texas A&M over South Carolina. South Carolina's offensive line just not up to par with some of the athletes Texas A&M has on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to go Clemson over NC State. And Clemson really needs to get back on track. 3 losses already. They lose the 4th before October's over, and they really need some changes to that program. I'm not the guy to say fire Dabo Swinney when he's done so much for the university, but I will say they need to rethink their stance on the transfer portal, on NIL. They just got Garrett Riley on offense, on the offensive coordinator. Maybe you let him take more of the offensive reins rather than running a Clemson offense, is what Dabo Swinney said before. I've got Clemson. If NC State can keep the score low, which this game should be pretty low scoring, maybe they hit on just enough big plays to win this game. Maybe wide receiver Concepcion is very, very good. Maybe he can get some good plays here to get the win. But I'm going Clemson. Mississippi State and Auburn, 2 of the worst teams in the SEC. We're going Auburn at home. Mississippi State just not as good as you would think. They're having injury issues at the quarterback position with Will Rogers out. So we're going Auburn. Purdue at Nebraska. We're going to go Purdue in this one. Evenly matched teams. I still think Purdue has enough juice, enough talent on this team from the last couple of years with Jeff Ramos there to get the job done. We're going to go Purdue, although I do think it's a toss-up. We're picking a lot of games this week. There's a lot of teams who need some big wins for bowl games in these next couple of weeks, so we're going to pick a lot of them. We're going to go Iowa State over Baylor. Baylor's been kind of a mess this season so far. Iowa State has too. I mean, they lost to Ohio, a MAC school, but they've gotten things decently back on track. So we're going to take Iowa State. Rocco Beck, their freshman quarterback, definitely one to watch in the future here. We have Minnesota over Michigan State. This is a game you could probably forget about. Very defensive, but we're going to take Minnesota because they should be able to run the ball and play good defense against Michigan State. We're going to go Duke and Louisville. We'll go Louisville to beat Duke. Riley Leonard's injury is the reason why. He just got back from injury against Florida State, then had to exit the game with injury. Louisville is a little bit more, I would say, healthy right now, and they did lose to Pitt, but I think it's a way to refocus. Now, if Riley Leonard plays and he's like 100% and we know that somehow before kickoff, my pick is changing, so definitely be careful when you are picking this game, but it is one of the better ones of the weekend. We're going to go Oregon over Utah. Now, if Cam Rising's playing, I think Utah might be undefeated at this point. I think I'd take Utah in this game. I think Utah might be a college football playoff dark horse, but he's out for the season. They just ruled him out for the season, so we're going to go Oregon. I think they're the more talented team overall, and just having a quarterback in Bo Nix who's a little bit more seasoned than Bryson Barnes for Utah, I think is going to be the difference here. So Oregon gets their win on the road. Next one up, we have Texas over BYU. Now, this one's interesting because Texas starting quarterback Quinn Ewers is out with an injury to his AC joint in his shoulder. Malik Murphy's expected to start. I think he is going to do enough to get the win. If he does not, Arch Manning is right there on the bench, so they have options. But they have enough talent around the quarterback position that they can get a win against BYU at home while they wait for Quinn Ewers to get back from injury. We're going to go Miami over Virginia again really quickly with this one because Virginia just pulled off a big win over North Carolina. I don't see that happening again. I think Miami has plenty of good players that aren't being tackled or talked about on a national level. They have a true freshman, Baines, edge rusher, who's playing very, very well. Tyler Van Dyke's supposed to be back for this game, so that should help too. So we're going to go Miami to win at home. Two of the better teams in the MAC, Ohio and Miami, Ohio. We're going to Ohio in this one. Miami, Ohio just lost Brett Gabbert probably for the season, so Ohio should be able to defend their home turf and get the win and possibly make a push towards being in a MAC championship game. Let's go Georgia over Florida. Georgia should be much better, but Florida's passing offense has started to take off, which is encouraging. But we're going to go Georgia. I think they're still the more talented team and should be able to win the rivalry game there. We're going to go Wyoming over Boise. Boise is not the same team they used to be. Wyoming is a team that I think is not very flashy. Like, they don't do anything well, like, offensively. They run the ball, I guess, pretty well, but you don't have the passing attack to really make the offense great, and the defense is very tough. They just find ways to win games. I'm going to go Wyoming. Tennessee and Kentucky. A couple weeks ago, I thought this might be like a bit ranked matchup for both teams, but Kentucky's kind of faded down the stretch. Devin Leary hasn't been as good as many people thought he would. He has never maybe come back from his injury since that 2021 season. Tennessee is a different type of team. They're not the big explosive play team that they were last year, but they do run the ball well. They play defense well. I'll take Tennessee on the road. I think it's more of a coin flip than people think, but especially with Kentucky coming off the bye week. But I'll take Tennessee. Just they've shown it better than Kentucky has this season. Now Washington over Stanford. We're picking this because Washington played a late game last week that many people didn't watch against Arizona State, and they almost lost. But I think they get back on track against Stanford. I think it's one of those, kind of maybe get ahead of yourself when you're looking at the schedule, looking at your ranking, and then you play Arizona State, and you're thinking, oh, we should win this. They're on their fourth option at quarterback, and Washington did not play well. I think if it was more viewed, Michael Penix would be taking a little bit more hit in the Heisman rankings right now, but since people didn't watch it, they didn't see. They only scored, I believe, 14 points, and I don't know if they had an offensive touchdown. So definitely one that they benefited from not having on national TV. We're going to go Troy over Texas State. Big Sun Belt matchup here. Troy, I think, is going to be a very, very tough team this season. Texas State's had a much better season than anyone would have thought under G.J. Kinney, the new head coach there, but I think Troy can get it done. They've kind of been around here, done this long enough. I think they can get the win and stay pretty relevant in the Sun Belt. Ohio State over Wisconsin. Wisconsin has been too up and down in Luke Fickell's first year. It's his first year. He's going to have a chance to turn things around pretty much in the next couple of years. But Ohio State, the defense is good enough to win big games for him. So even if the offense doesn't step up, the defense can do it. But I do expect this offense to get a little bit better down the stretch. We do have UCLA to beat Colorado. This is one where Colorado definitely could pull off a win and then become bowl eligible, which is something we didn't see before the season. The preseason over-under win total was 3.5. Because the quarterback play for UCLA is not that great, but the defense is too good. Watch out for Latu to have a big game as a pass rusher for UCLA. Let's go UNC over Georgia Tech. They get back on the right side of things here with the win. They get refocused. Very bad to lose to a team who only had one win at that point last week. That really hurts their college football playoff hopes, even though typically they don't really care who you lose to. They just care about what teams you beat. But, they're going from an undefeated team to losing to a one-win team. That really does set you back. Oklahoma State over Cincinnati. Oklahoma State's really turned things around. Cincinnati's really struggled with their transition to the Big 12, but they also only brought back like 3 or 4 starters on the whole team. So that's very, very tough to do, to go to a new conference, a better conference, and try to win. When your head coach leaves, all these players leave. Oklahoma State's finding a star in Ollie Gordon, really running the ball well. Alan Bowman at quarterback is also playing pretty well. I think they have a pretty good game, and they win this one against Cincinnati, and really changed the narrative on their season after it started pretty poorly, and they lost to South Alabama. All right, we're going to go Fresno State over UNLV for our last pick of the week. Actually, we'll do Oregon State, Arizona, too. So we'll pick Fresno State. The defense is good. UNLV's off to a pretty hot start in the Mountain West and overall, but Fresno State with Mikey Keene and that defense, I think, gets the job done. And then we have Oregon State over Arizona. Arizona has injuries to the quarterback position, but Fafita, their quarterback now, is actually pretty good still. They definitely have weapons as well with Michael Wiley at running back and Jacob Cowing at wide receiver. But Oregon State has something going here. I think DJ Uiagalelei is playing better now that he's outside of that Clemson offense, that Clemson program. And that defense is pretty good too. So I'm going to take Oregon State to kind of stay alive in this Pac-12 championship race, which is going to get very fun down the stretch. So those are my picks for the week. Let me know who you're picking in the comments below. For now, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.